Hey YouTube, this is the Phantom Outlaw coming back to you with another gun review. Today we're going to talk about the Taurus Judge Public Defender Polymer. Wow, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Let's talk about what that is real quickly. So basically it is a Judge. For those of you that don't know what that is a revolver that Taurus came out with 10 or 12 years ago. It kind of got nicknamed the Judge and then formally became the Judge as a result of a number of judges carrying one under their robes, apparently in court, because of its effectiveness at close quarters without a lot of collateral damage and the need to be protected in their courtroom. So I'm not sure how much truth there is to all of that, but that's the way the story goes. It's interesting at least. It's also called the Poly because it's a polymer frame. What you see here in Flat Dark Earth is polymer. It's a steel frame underneath that. And it is still, as I said, the Taurus Judge at heart. Alright, so what all does that mean? The caliber is what makes the Judge the Judge. It shoots a 45 long Colt, or better known as 45 Colt. That's a bullet. That's these two over here, very large bullets. We'll get to those here again in just a moment. And or it shoots the 410 gauge shot shell. That's all of these right here. We'll cover those. You can alternate the mix of those. You can have 3 of one and 2 of another, or alternate it every other one in the chamber. It doesn't really matter. The cylinder will hold, in this case, 2.5 inch 410 shells. I'll get to some differences here of those in just a moment. So that's what the gun is. As my usual review flow goes, I'm going to talk about a lot of the specs first, then we'll talk about some of the pros and cons. So the specs, we've already discussed the caliber because it's quite a mouthful to get all of that out. The overall length is 7.65 inches. The barrel length is 2.5 inches. The height, 4.6 inches. This will be a little bit taller than that, and I'll explain the differences in a moment. The width, 1.5 inches. Weight, empty, 23 ounces. The action is double action or single action. The front sight is a fixed red fiber optic front sight. The rear sight is adjustable for windage and elevation. The cylinder will hold 5 shots, so the capacity is only 5. It does have the Taurus safety system. It's not really a manual safety. That's a little key you can use to lock or unlock the action of the gun itself. But it does have the Taurus TSS. Trigger pull is about 12 pounds for double action and about 5 pounds for single action. So a nice variance there. Alright, so let's talk about real quickly. We had spoken a minute ago as far as the different types of bullets. Right here, we've got the 410 Colt, or the 410 long Colt, or a cowboy shot. That's a hollow point. This one here is just a lead nose. So you can sort of see, that's a pretty decent sized bullet. All right, that is a lot taller than a regular 45 ACP. Now, to avoid some confusion, this gun will not shoot 45 ACP. Smith & Wesson has a revolver similar to this called the Governor, and it will shoot the 45 ACP in addition to these calibers or these gauges here. The difference is the ability to use a moon clip to help hold the ACP, which is a rimless cartridge in the cylinder. None of the Judges have that ability. There are a bunch of different varieties of the Judge. There's Raging Judge and this Judge and that Judge and every other Judge you can think of. The differences are going to be finish, the material. The Raging Judge is a couple different versions of those, one of which will also shoot the 454 Casull. But that's not what we're talking about here today. So I want to just to clarify some of the differences. This is simply the Public Defender Polymer. Alright, so just to clear all that up. Now I mentioned a little while ago that this one's a little bit taller than most. The ribber grip that comes with it, that's Taurus's name, is a much smaller grip. It's only about this big. It's comfortable to hold on to if you have really small hands. I have big hands. I wanted a bigger grip. I also wanted a bigger grip because it'll help to offset some of the recoil. And as you can imagine, with the 410 shot shell or a 45 Colt round, there will be some recoil with this. This is a Pachmayr aftermarket grip that I got real easy fix. It's very inexpensive. Took me about 2 minutes to put it on, and it makes shooting it a much more manageable shot. So that's why I said before, as far as the height goes, this one's a little bit taller than out of the box would be. This particular color is Flat Dark Earth. It also comes in all black, and there's also a version where the cylinder is stainless steel with the black frame. This is the black cylinder with the Flat Dark Earth frame. Alright, so those are the stats we've gone over. And a lot of that we're going to come up against here as we talk about some of the pros and cons, because what makes it so versatile is what kind of offsets the Judge. Another version of a name I've heard for it is the carjack gun. As some of the stories go, I guess because of the effectiveness of the 410 in it, it's an ideal gun to defend your car against should you be subject to a carjacking. Again, that's just some stories. Don't know how much truth there is to that. I would not want to be on either end of that experience, but I'm sure that if need be, that it would certainly take care of business. All right. Another thing we want to talk about here real quickly before we get too in-depth, and this is one of the pros, and I want to explain this. You're going to see, what do we have here? 7 different loads right here. There are many more than that. This is what I currently have available, so I just wanted to show the variety, and a wide variety at that, of what we're talking about here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take the two 45s, kind of set them off to the side for a quick moment as we talk about the different 410s. What we've got here, and I'm going to kind of just go through real quickly, show you the first one here. This is the Winchester PDX-1 Defender. Again, 2.5-inch cylinder, so make sure if you're paying attention, that same shot is available in the 3-inch. That will not work in this one. This one is a 2.5-inch PDX-1 Defender. Now, what's neat about the PDX-1 Defender, for those of you that aren't aware of it, is it shoots, in addition to shots, because there are, I think, 10 or 12 little BBs, little shot shells in there. There are also 3 discs, and the 3 discs are like the little watch batteries, and they're kind of stacked up right on top. And when those things come flying out, they are very, very lethal. The BBs, or the pellets that accompany it, just add to it. By themselves, I'm not sure how effective they would simply be. They'll cause some additional damage, I'm sure, but it's the discs that are really the driving force of the PDX-1 Defender round. The 3-inch version will have 1 more disc and a couple more of the pellets. But in this case, we're dealing strictly with the 2.5-inch. So very, very good choice. In the spread, at about 10 yards, those 3 discs aren't going to spread very far. You're talking 4 or 5 inches of spread. Now, the pellets will spread out even further. But at close quarters, very, very lethal. The next one we've got here, this is the Winchester AA. This one here is 9-shot, and it's a 1/2-ounce load in there. I don't know how many pellets there are in there, but they're tiny little buggers as it's 9-shot, as you can imagine. And at 7 yards, I had a 20 by 40 piece of paper, I think. That was my silhouette style target. And at 7 yards, 1 shot of that pretty much covered the whole target. Not top to bottom as much, but right to left. There were holes across the entire target. Now again, because of how small these pellets are and the power behind them, they're not a terribly effective defensive load in terms of inflicting a lot of harm, but they definitely will cover a lot of area. All right, the next one we're talking about here, this one is the Critical Defense. This is Hornady. What we've got here is it's the 410 Triple Defense is what they call it, and it's got 2 round balls inside of it. So this one is, again, very, very lethal. It's sort of like, probably like 2 9mm coming at you, if you want to think about it in that regard. It's a little bit slower, obviously, but still something you do not want to get in the way of, for sure. The next thing we've got here, this is Federal. This is the Federal 410 handgun, number 4 shot. All right, I want to show you on this box. When you look on here, you're going to see where it says the 410 handgun. What's important there is the 410 load has been around for quite a long time. The handguns that shoot 410 have not been around that long. If you're simply shooting 410 shot shell, which is what what we're talking about with the Winchester, the AA, you're not going to get much control with that, because that's designed for a shotgun barrel, a longer length, not the short barrel that this one has. So the handgun loads are more designed to be more effective with a much shorter barrel. They're not going to get much shorter than what you see right here on the Public Defender Poly here. So this one is actually designed to work with the shorter barrel, so you're going to get a little bit more effectiveness out of that. And then the last one I've got here, this is the Remington HD Ultimate Home Defense, HC for Home Defense. What we're dealing with here, this is also 4 pellets, triple-aught buck. It's 1225 velocity at the muzzle. I'm not sure if that's with this particularly short muzzle in mind. I don't know what muzzle if it's a 4-inch or there's even a 6, and I think an 8-inch version of this gun. So I'm not sure what length barrel they use when they do their velocities. But nonetheless, very effective. It's got a series of, I think it's 4 large balls inside there. Again, not something you want to be on the business end of. All right, so that's a real simple breakdown of what we're talking about as far as some of the varieties of shot shell that are available for the Judge. All right, so next thing we're going to talk about real quickly here are the 45 long Colt. This particular one here, this 45 Colt here, this is the Hornady Critical Defense, and you're going to see it does have the little red insert there. Again, the red tip insert is designed with the Hornady brands to help prevent the hollow point from getting clogged or gunked up with leather or denim or any type of clothing that your target may be wearing, which would prevent it from expanding correctly. Obviously, with the defensive rounds, you want the proper expansion of the round. Again, that is not something I would want to get in front of, regardless of what kind of gun it's coming out of, certainly that big. I have no doubt it's an effective caliber, a very capable round, something to keep in mind. All right, the other one we've got here, and this is just simply a Winchester lead nose. This is just basic, some ball ammo, some target ammo. This is 250 grain. This one is 185 grain. So you've got a lot more weight coming out of the lead nose than you do with the hollow point. Obviously, that's pretty common. So for just putting holes in paper, it's a much less expensive alternative to go with the lead nose. I shot probably 75 or so of these, and all told with the shot shell, I'll probably put another 75 or 80 different types of shot shells through the gun. And I will tell you this, accuracy is not ideal. Obviously with the short barrel, it's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to be aware of is that the barrel does have some shallow rifling, which would be very important for the bullets. It really doesn't impact the shot shell very much, but because it's a shallower rifling, you don't get, and a short barrel to add to that, you're not going to get tremendous accuracy. We'll cover a little bit more of that here in a moment. All right, so now we've talked about a lot of the different types of loads. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons now. And the first major pro, which is what we just spent several minutes talking about, is the flexibility of the calibers. You've got a small sampling here. There's many other choices out there of what you can load it up with. What I like about it is what I would call maybe a trail caliber or trail gun, more so for the shot shells and more so for the regular bird shots or the smaller ones for trail use. When we're out doing some hiking in the woods, it's not uncommon for us to come across some snakes and whatnot, maybe even some smaller four-legged type creatures, if you will, that you just want to make sure that they stay away from you and you stay away from them. But if you need to deal with them, the shotgun shell will certainly help. The fact that it's a smaller barrel means you have to get pretty close to it. I would say 5 yards, I would feel very comfortable with accuracy. Certainly less than that would be even better. But once you get past the 5 to 7 yard range, accuracy is a little bit spotty. But so the flexibility of the calibers really come in handy there. If you're concerned about the four-legged big bad guys, bears, there are better choices, but a 45 Colt is certainly something around here, and I live in North Georgia, something that would take care of what we would have to worry about as far as that goes. So you do have some flexibility, and the tremendous choices with the calibers is really appealing. Yes, every caliber is going to have multiple type loads. I'm not trying to say that this is the only caliber that has this type of flexibility, but the fact that this will take the 410 shot shell and the 45 Colt in a variety of loads is very appealing. The size and weight of this gun, because this has the polymer frame, it's going to be lighter weight than the all-metal brothers of the other Judges. So it's nice if you're going to be carrying it, not concealed carry, obviously. It's a little bit too big for that. But if you're going to be carrying it when you're out in the woods or doing some hiking, it's not too big, it's not too heavy. So that's very appealing as well. You can see I've got the flat dark earth version. I've already mentioned the black version, the stainless steel cylinder, the black cylinder. So you do have a couple choices of colors, which is also nice to have some variety with that. We've also talked about the multiple applications of the various ammo. You can mix and match the load. You've got 5 rounds you can carry in the cylinder, and you can go 45, 410, 45, 410, however you want to do that, or 45, 45, 45, 410, 410, or however you want to load it up. There's no restrictions there. And I have done plenty of combinations of loading when shooting. You do notice a difference from one trigger pull to the next when you have different loads in there, but it's not so much night and day. Again, with most things shooting, if you have proper muscle memory going for you, you won't have any issues with that whatsoever. Another nice appealing part of this being a Taurus, and that may be an oxymoron to some, is it does have a limited lifetime warranty. So if you do have some issues with it, Taurus will stand behind it. All right. This is a revolver, obviously, so there's a tremendous ease of use. People that aren't familiar with how some of the semi-automatics work, not everybody's able to rack a slide. We've talked about that in some of the other videos. Revolvers are very appealing. Just like your other revolver, you push it in, you release the cylinder, and you're good to go. Load up your cylinder, close it, you're ready to shoot. When it's empty, after you fired it, open it up, push down on the rod, you're going to empty out your shells, reload it, load it back up, you're back in business. So the fact that it's a very simple process, like all revolvers are, is appealing for quite a few people. We've already talked about the mix of ammo, not just the different types of ammo, but the fact you can mix a cylinder, I think is a big thing that doesn't get enough mention. The fact that you can do that is very appealing for a lot of people. All right. The 410 load, we've talked about we've talked about some of the birdshot or the number 9 load. We've talked about the PDX-1 Defender and the Remington and the other types of loads. You can mix up different types of that too. You can go with number 4 shot. You can go with the ball, some of the Remingtons, or the Winchester with the discs in it. The number 9 shot. You can kind of mix that up too. So you can have different uses. You can have different types of 410 loads in the gun at one time, depending on what you think you might encounter, depending on how you're going to use it. So again, very, very appealing with that. It is a single action and a double action. Definitely it's easier to shoot and more controllable and accurate in single action, but it also works just fine from double action. You just have to get used to it, longer, heavier trigger pull. We talked about 12 pounds versus 5 pounds. It's also a longer pull in double action, so you will impact your accuracy a little bit with that. Another appealing application of the Judge in general would be home protection. So not just car jack protection, not just trail protection, home protection. Again, the fact, forget the 45 Colt for a lot of this situation. With the different loads of the 410 shot shell, at short range, it can be very, very effective. Despite what Hollywood would have you believe that with the shotgun, you just point in the general direction of the target and you can't miss. In reality, those of you that have ever shot a shotgun understand you still do have to aim. The fact that you have some shot shells in there allows it to be a little bit more forgiving, but you still need to aim the gun. And at 5 to 7 yards, and let's face it, folks, in a personal defense situation, the overwhelming majority of those situations will occur at that shorter distance. The various different types of defensive shot shells will be very effective for you. So that's a handful of the big pluses that I talk about. I think the pros in this gun are fantastic. Unfortunately, there are a few cons. So let's address those here real quickly. I mentioned a moment ago that the larger Packmeyer grip does help to offset some of the recoil, and it does. But don't get that in the wrong direction here. There is still recoil, and it's a pretty significant recoil. Now, I've been shooting for, oh good grief, almost 30 years now. I'm very familiar with different types of gauges and calibers and big bullets and small bullets, etc., etc. So the bigger bang is not necessarily a bad thing for myself or people like me who are familiar with shooting. But I would guess if you're newer to shooting that the recoil that this gun generates could be a deterrent. So just be aware going into it that the bigger bullets, the shot shells, do have that side effect. Accuracy, as I mentioned, there's some light rifling in the barrel. Even with the bullets, which are designed to be more accurate, obviously, I was finding at 10 yards, and I'm not the best marksman. I've said that many times before. I don't claim to be any type of a skilled shooter, but I am very, very consistent. So it's not like I'm 2 inches left and 5 inches right and a foot low and 6 inches high. I'm pretty consistent. When I miss in the same general vicinity. And I found that with this one, whatever load I had, whatever type bullet I was using, my misses were fairly consistent. And so that, to me, it could be my trigger pull, but I had other people shoot it as well with similar type results. And it was a little bit more spread out, a little bit more all over the place. So you don't have precision accuracy with this. But again, if you're shooting at a bad guy who's 12 or 15 feet away from you and you miss by an inch or two, you're still going to take care of business. So no worries there. But it's just not the most accurate type of firearm. I've talked about the original grip that came with it. Because it was smaller, you had less control of the gun. For some real small hands, it may have been a comfortable grip, but the recoil was not real favorable there. This Packmeyer one is larger. It allows your whole hand to get on there. It's a very comfortable feel. So unfortunately, the original grip would definitely be a bit of a con. It is a 5-shot cylinder. So that means despite whatever load you have, you've got 5 shots. A lot of the other pistols that are out there, especially in some of the bigger calibers, you're going to get 7, 10, 14 of some of the 45s. If you drop down to 9mm, you're going to get 15, 17, 19. There's a lot of different options out there, but you're limited to 5 with this one. We talked about this also earlier. The last con that I would bring up is that despite the fact that it is small and light for what it is, in my opinion, it's still too big for an everyday carry gun. Now, if you're going to carry outside the waistband, or you're carrying in the woods where you're not trying to conceal anything, there's nothing wrong with it. But if it's something you're trying to conceal, because of the size of it, it's going to be a challenge for you. So it's definitely not an ideal everyday carry gun. So there you have it. Those are my pros and cons, some general discussion. There's a lot to like about this gun, for sure. And I don't want anybody to think that the handful of negatives would be a reason not to get it. There's no reason not to get it. There's a lot of positives, for sure. I think it's a slick design, the different options you've got going for it, the flexibility of the ammo, the different choices that you can work with on it, however you want to work with that. It's really appealing. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of recoil, some kick to this gun, so just be aware of that as well when you're looking into it. It is a Taurus. For some people, that's a big turnoff, as I've alluded to a little while ago. But for most people who follow Taurus, their wheel guns, the revolvers, seem to fare a bit better than some of their semi-automatics. At least so far, this particular one seems to stand up pretty well. One of the things that I know a couple other people that have one of these, and one of the guys I know that has one, he was telling me that his brand new, the cylinder, again, I'm not trying to showcase a particular feature here, but the cylinder, when he would spin the knob, would rotate once, maybe 1.5 times. As you're noticing here, it's spinning pretty freely. I mean, that goes pretty well. Now, yes, I've lubricated that, but that is something that some people are concerned with. It's really hard for you to see on camera, but the distance right here my finger is, where the cylinder is just barely away from the frame, and we're talking a 32nd of an inch maybe. Maybe some of them, that's a little bit too tight. Maybe there's a little bit of friction right there. So if you have a chance to handle one of these before you buy it, check to make sure that there is some space. Again, where we're talking here, it's really tough to see, but it's right in here, just above where my finger is. And there is space there for probably 4 or 5 pieces of paper, if you will, thickness there. But perhaps other people's are going to have less space there, which means it'll be a little bit harder to get that free rotation. Because of that small space in general, speed loaders don't really work too well with this, as far as like the round speed loaders. Something I've come across, and I forget this is Bianchi Speed Strip. Now this holds 6. I took one off here to put it in front of you here, but with 5, because it only holds 5, this is another option to carry 5 reloads, and the 45s, the Colts will fit on here as well. So the speed strip is an option for it. The round speed loaders do not fit. There's just not enough space in there to get those in there. So another option for you if you're thinking about that. All right, folks, that's my take here on the Taurus Judge Public Defender Poly. Again, something I think is a good choice to consider. Relatively inexpensive. You're looking at probably $200 to $300 less for the Judge than you would spend for the Smith & Wesson Governor. Now, the Governor does not have a polymer version, so this one kind of stands out on its own. But there are a number of different versions of the Judge, and you're looking at an apples-to-apples comparison of the Judge that is very comparable to the Governor. It's about $250 less for the Judge. A big part of that is the quality, certainly. But also with the Smith & Wesson Governor, you're paying a little bit more for the name. So something to think about. This is definitely a fair choice to consider. I hope you're all doing well. If you've got any questions, please drop me a line below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Take care.